Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about Secret Project number 2, or better known as, or soon will be better known as, The Frugal Wizard's Survival Guide to Medieval England. So, this being a new book, this is one of Brandon Sanderson's Secret Project books. So I'm going to kind of just give my reactionary thoughts because I just finished it. So I want to kind of just talk about my general thoughts. I'll probably make another video later going into depth about the world building and stuff because this book has some really fun world building. So this one will have a non-spoiler section and a kind of a quick spoiler section. So as always, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And let's begin. So, the Frugal Guide, or the Frugal Wizard's Guide for Surviving Medieval England. That is a mouthful of a title, but it totally makes sense. It is so different than what I expected it to be. It is really cool. This is one of Brandon's few books that are very sci-fi. This one actually leans a bit more sci-fi than it does fantasy, but I think this one is a great example of how you can play fantasy and sci-fi in the same story and have it work perfectly. Because the mechanics of this world and the whole setup and everything, it's familiar, but it's new, it's kind of unique, but it's like, well, I guess to repeat myself, it's familiar, but it's new. Like some of the stuff is kind of new and unique, but it's like a lot of it feels like references to a lot of different things that I've seen. So it's really familiar in a comfortable way, but it doesn't feel like a ripoff. It doesn't feel very derivative in any sort of way. It doesn't feel like, oh, been here, done that at all. It's just like there's just this touchstone kind of familiarity to it. That's the best way I think I can describe it. It's a lot of fun. So we have in this book Brandon is using the trope called the white room trope, which is essentially when your character has no memory of who they are or what they're doing, and we kind of learn about who they are and where they are at the same time as they are. So similar to like Jason Bourne, which Brandon actually acknowledges in his acknowledgments. This is like after postscript kind of thing at the end of the book. He kind of mentions that that's kind of one of the tropes he wanted to play with. And I was thinking about that trope as I was going through it because I've always had issues with that trope because when you do that, you kind of lose characterization on the other characters, and I think that kind of happens in this book. While our protagonist is really interesting and really cool, especially when you really get to know who they are, you really get to know more about them as they learn more about themselves. Like I really like that, and I really like the time we spend with them and the characters that they meet and stuff. Like that's really fun. That's really awesome, and it's done really well because Brandon really does like these found family kind of situations really well. So we have another similar situation to that here, but different dynamic than the other ones that we've seen before, and it's really well done. I really like it a lot. But the only drawback I really have to it is that we don't really know much about, or no, we don't know much to like nothing about the villain. Like we don't really get anything about the villain until pretty much the very end. We kind of get little snippets here and there about speculations and stuff that go along with the memory recovery, but we don't really know a lot about them. And then when we kind of get the motivations, it comes down to something very generic and kind of boring. So it's kind of a detraction overall from my experience. But I am a huge world building fan, and the world building in this book is just masterclass. It is so much fun. It reminds me of a book Stephen King wrote, a novella, a very short novella called Europe, where it's kind of multiverse. So I don't think it's spoilery to kind of talk about the overall premise of the story. But in case this does come off as spoilery, I'm going to put spoiler warning here as well. So I guess we're going to start this as the spoiler portion, but this will be like soft spoilers, and then we'll go total spoilers. So the book is not exactly what the title would suggest. Given the title, I kind of naturally assumed it was going to be just this kind of guidebook, just kind of the story of this character like explaining the guidebook, when it kind of is that in a way, but it's more the character using the or attempting to use the guidebook. So it's not so much just I don't know. It is clearly not what it is on the face of it. As I said, it leans more into the sci-fi aspect of it. So, judging by the title and the cover art and stuff, you would expect it to very much be a wizard's guide to medieval England. I thought it was going to be some similar to Merlin type era kind of thing. Something like DJ McHale's The Merchant of Death, maybe something like that. Like I had a lot of different, just very generic kind of fantasy kind of expectations. So when it became known that this was like a Westworld multiverse situation, I was like, this is cool. So this is a scenario where someone lives in the where where everyone's in the far flung future, where we've discovered and perfected interdimensional travel, and we've kind of discovered that there's the branching universe theory is kind of the way things work, and so there's various levels of dimensions that are branches off of our dimension. So they're similar enough to Earth, but different enough to be novel and entertaining, but similar enough that you're not completely alien to it and stuff like that. So of course commercialism and capitalism has to come in on it, and they're basically selling these universes off like vacation spots or whatever. So you can have your own unique code to and access to this single dimension that you own, and you can go and basically rule the world in that dimension and stuff. And it's completely sci-fi. It's basically Westworld on a greater scale. Like so, it's really really cool. So it's similar to Westworld. It's similar to Stephen King's book Your, in that it is multiversal travel that's based on branch universes, because in that one the main character gets access to a Kindle where he's able to read news articles that explains like different events in different universes, all based on different events have just singular events having changed and caused an entire branch off difference. So it's very much like that. So I kind of want to wrap up the non-spoiler section and say this is really really fun book. It's very light. It's kind of it might be of a lower age range demographic than Tress of the Emerald Sea is, I think. But there's some of the violence in it that it kind of takes it up to a little bit of a higher level. I wouldn't really give it to like young kids, but I think middle like young adults like I don't know, 14-ish up, kind of in that range. That's kind of where I give it, because like some of the violence is kind of up there, but overall the entire essence of the book is very all ages appropriate. It's very fun, but it doesn't kind of talk down to you at all. It's similar to other Brandon's works like Alcatraz, where it's clearly for all ages, but he does not like talk down to you. So it's kind of a lot of fun in that way. But this one is more mature than Alcatraz, at least I would say so. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the spoiler section. So spoilers for the Frugal Wizard's Guide to Surviving Medieval England. so So this story is really cool. So the idea of the white room trope is used really well. So we have this character named John, or we learn that his actual name is John, but he kind of goes by another name that I sort of forget, like Rayoden, Rudy. It's he has a different name. It's kind of like Rayoden. My brain keep calling him Rayoden, even though it's not. It's something similar to that. But that's kind of his chosen name in this world. His name back home was John something, John West, and he Johnny, or he's called Johnny, but he always introduces himself as John, but other people call him Johnny, basically as a mark of derision and stuff. So this character basically arrives in this universe completely like loses his memory because of the interdimensional travel difference, and then he kind of has to go through like just general stuff, kind of fumble his way around, speculate about who he is, and try to use those clues and stuff to figure out exactly who he is, what he's doing here, what's going on, the whole deal. And that's kind of essentially how we learn about it, and it's done really well. I like how we learn about these new characters, and like we learn about their mythology and their theology, and about the way their superstitions and stuff affect their culture and their world and everything about that. And he's kind of just very dismissive of it because he's clearly coming from an earth that's very secular. Like the religion has less of a hold on the world in modern times, especially with advanced science technology, than it had previously. So he's just kind of very dismissive of it. But he is, of course, in a dimension that just so happens to be the only located dimension that has what seems to be real magic. So it's really interesting that he happens to be there, and we happen to be in this story that feels so hard sci-fi, but it has this straight up magic element in it. So that to me is where it feels like this pure 50-50 sci-fi fantasy kind of story. So it's just a lot of fun because there he meets a character that's essentially like a psychic or like a shaman lady or something, and the way they kind of interact with their world through their superstition and stuff is really unique, in that she has to kind of say these boasts in order to like bind a spirit and kind of trap these kind of sprite type things and stuff like that. And like they have these thing called wights, which are something different in Norse mythology, which is where a lot of this stuff kind of comes from, which is different than what they are in real Norse mythology. But here it's like it turns out they're kind of real like sprite things, but everybody, you know, kind of was dismissive of them because superstition and all that stuff. So there's just I'm sorry, there's just a lot about it. So I'm just very much in a rambly, like off top of mind kind of thing right now. So I'm definitely going to make another video going into greater detail about it. But I wanted to give my first initial reactions of the book. I really, really like it. It was a lot of fun. My favorite part about this book is 100% the world building. I think the characters are really well done. They're really fleshed out, except for the villain, as I said in the non-spoilery section. The only downside to doing a white room trope kind of thing where the character doesn't have all their memories is that we have no real concept of the villain until it crops up. And that often happens towards the end of a story like this. So we really don't know much about the villain, and we don't even know much about his old friend Ryan, who is kind of a sub-antagonist to a minor degree to his own character's development. So that's just my only drawback to the entire story. Other than that, it's a lot of fun. It's a very good, relaxing read. It's a lot of fun. I mean, I've already said that it's just like it's similar to Tress, but it's completely different. Like Tress is a great entry point to the Cosmere. This is not Cosmere at all, and this just kind of feels like you just kind of want a leisure read. It is a pure leisure read. That is the best. That is the best way to describe it. I think it is a leisure read. It is a cool, chill kind of day kind of read. Like, and it's just to relax on the beach or something like that. So I just really like it, and I definitely recommend it. And I am definitely going to make another video because I want to kind of get into the world building, kind of get into all the details. But that'll make this video very, very long. And I'm very rambly because I just finished it. My thoughts are barely coalesced at all. So yeah, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and I will talk to you all next time. Peace.